Yes, indeedy, folks. It's the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. Let's drive Moab. I took a drive down to Moab in March of 2007. It was a nice time to be there. It was overcast and cool, a great time to go out and check things out. In previous episodes, we've looked at the great drive down to Moab. We went on a little drive down Highway 279 down the river. We've gone out and checked out Dead Horse Point, a Utah state park, and we've also checked out Canyonlands National Park. On our last drive Moab, we went up beautiful little Highway 128. We looked at some beautiful open roads rolling through the valley. We went by some crags that almost pushed us into the river. We looked at Dewey Bridge, a truly tragic story of a bridge that's been burnt because of kids playing with matches. And we looked up at the lands that go up off of the river and back toward the freeway. We finished our drive at Taylor Creek Ranch. We'd had some great birdhouses, had a nice lunch, and enjoyed the quality of a place that has a fine sign like this. It also has this stunning piece of scenery. Now folks, there are lots of stunning pieces of scenery around here, and I'm not sure if this is what they call Castle Rock or not. However, Castle Rock is a monument that is recognized on the maps, and I'm guessing that they mean this rather impressive chunk of rock. Castle Rock is such a predominant feature that there is a Castle Creek that flows in the next little valley over from where we are on Road 128. A few miles to the west of this rather impressive rock is a road that goes over into Castle Creek Valley, and we're going to go exploring this very, very beautiful, beautiful little drive. So let's start from our home base here, shall we? This chunk of rock basically across the street from Taylor Creek Ranch. The road to Castle Creek begins by going to the south through some wonderful rolling hills. I'm not a geologist and I have not studied this particular formation really well, but it seems to me that these great little hills that have such an interesting drive through them are the result of the deterioration of the great cliffs that are on both sides of this little pass that we go through. After just a few windy miles, we start to descend into beautiful Castle Creek Valley. We are heading east here, and as we look from the south up toward the north, we see that from our home base, where we were just a few minutes ago, we are now on the opposite side of this structure that I'm thinking is Castle Rock. It is late March. As we head to the east, we are climbing and we soon get to the hills, where we quickly climb into snow. Not only is there snow, but look at that great little unimproved paved road. This little road continues up across these mountains. I decided between the snow and the complete lack of travel, I would call this good enough. However, in the summertime, you can drive on up over these hills and take several trails from there. You can go keep heading to the east. You can loop back to Moab, and apparently this is the trailhead for the very famous Slick Rock Bike Trail. Having turned around and driving back toward the west, we begin to again see some great spectacular views of the cliffs that are to the north of us and between us and Highway 128. We've come a little ways down the hill. You can see that there's no snow here. We are looking across the valley up toward the north and to the west. And you can see that on the other side of the valley, right behind that little blue sign, there is a huge gap. There are towering cliffs on both sides that separate this valley from the valley that Highway 128 goes. It is through this gap that we drive when we go from Highway 128 over to Castle Creek Valley. And so we drive out of Castle Valley and on to our next Moab experience. Next Moab experience, did I say? Well, folks, that didn't take long. Here we are back on Highway 128. And no sooner do we get back on Highway 128 than off in the distance we see a rather large structure off to the right behind that rock there. When we first started going up Highway 128, we went through a rather lengthy canyon that we enjoyed a car cam on. And at the end of that canyon, one of the first things we noticed was a bundle of buildings off in the distance. This bundle of buildings is the other side of that rooftop we saw peeking from behind the rocks. It is named after the red cliffs that you see there on the other side of the river off to the left. It is called Red Cliffs Lodge. Red Cliff Lodge is a good-looking place. I had heard about it. It is apparently a rather extensive dude ranch, and so I decided, well, I got to go check it out. From where we first get a peek of it going toward the west, we drive around this lovely little cliff, and we find ourselves in a great spacious dining room with a very nice view. This view is looking east up the Colorado River. The view is even more pleasant from the deck. And from the deck, you can also check out the teepees. The lodge includes their own winery and tasting room. I walked down a hall, and lo and behold, I found myself staring at one of the Egyptian statues that I have seen so many images of. Or, I should say, a Hollywood replica. This ceramic colossus stands over the stairway that goes down to the Movie History Museum. Who would expect to find the Moab to Monument Valley Film Commission Museum and Library out here at a nice, fancy, modern dude ranch? Well, it turns out, back in 1948, before the working ranch that is still going on started taking in guests, a film was made here. Rio Grande, starring John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara, was the first movie made at Red Cliffs Ranch back in 1948. Actually, over the years, many films have been made in the red cliffs and canyons around here, up on the desert on Highway 128 going toward Interstate 70, and at Red Cliffs Ranch. Stars that have worked in this area include Henry Fonda, Rock Hudson, Jimmy Stewart, Richard Boone, Lee Marvin, Anthony Quinn, Billy Crystal, Gina Davis, Susan Sheridan, Robert Duvall, Gene Hackman, Tom Cruise, and others. This is a great little museum, well laid out, lots of interesting artifacts. It's free to the public, so just saunter on in there and enjoy yourself, partner. After the Red Cliffs Lodge, we go on down the Colorado River on Highway 128, go back through the canyon that we'd enjoyed so much coming up the first part of our drive. Just as the canyon ends, we once again see this magnificent rock structure on the cliff across the river. And this cliff, this rock structure, this look at the Colorado River pretty well wraps up the drives that we're going to take around Moab. And now it's time for Remodel Mania. Good old Boise High. Built between 1908 and 1921 in 3 different sections, it has served the city very, very well over the years. The campus expanded, of course, but by the 1990s, it was getting to where there were safety concerns about the old building, there was lack of parking space, there were several problems that were leading the city to think about what to do with this great school. Many people thought we should just build a new school out in the suburbs with parking and modern facilities. Many people thought that that would be a detriment to the neighborhood and to the education of the kids. It's a very popular school. A lot of kids like to go there. It's close to downtown, has a more urban feel. Finally, it was decided to remodel the school and split the student body in half. The idea was to have 1,200 students remain at this campus and another 1,200 students at the new Timberline High School out on Boise Avenue. Part of restructuring the school would be to tear down the old Industrial Arts building, which was built in 1919, and build a new facility designed for science classrooms. Senator Frank Church had graduated from Boise High in 1942, and it was decided to call this new building the Frank Church Building of Technology. It was fairly easy to come up with estimates for what it would cost to build this new building. However, it was more difficult to figure out what it would cost to restore the old white brick building. To help figure out costs, the district decided to remodel this one classroom. It was sort of a wish list remodel. If we could do what we really wanted to do, let's do this room and then figure out what the cost would be. They took off the insulating paneling that was on the windows that was installed in the 60s, put in new windows. They redid the heating and air conditioning. They brought this room up to what they would like to see the school become and figured out what it cost to do that. After extensive study, it was figured out that in order to meet the fire and safety standards throughout the campus, in order to establish modern communication technology throughout the campus, in order to remodel all the rooms, demolish the IA building, and build the new Frank Church addition, it was going to cost about $36 million. The school district agreed that that would be about the right budget. They got to crunching the numbers, and they figured out that out of the $36 million, they could come up with $13.5 million. 1/3 of what was needed. So, of course, they got right on it. In 1995, the school district had purchased a Mormon church that was just east of the Industrial Arts building. In 1996, they cleared that land, and in 1997, they took down the old Industrial Arts building. Between 1997 and 1998, they built the Frank Church Building of Technology. This 2-story building covers half of a city block and has modern, large classrooms that contain all of the sciences taught in the high school. In addition to the science classes, it also has a modern gymnasium. In the curved part behind the pillars there is a modern library, which includes a media center with modern computer labs. This library replaces a library that was in a dark basement room. And the building includes a modern, sunny cafeteria. The previous cafeteria was in the basement of the west wing of the White Building. Today, this modern, sunny cafeteria is a pleasant place to have lunch, and it has doors. The windows there include a couple of garage door style doors that can be opened up on pleasant days and go out into a patio that was made between the buildings. They took out the street and put in a nice concourse that is a meeting area for the campus. On pleasant days, they take a grill out here and have barbecue, and they support the Bricks for Braves. These bricks can be purchased for about $100 depending on what you want on them, commemorating when you graduated or whatever you want to commemorate on them. The bricks enhance the appearance of the school, of course, but they are also a fundraising opportunity for Brave parents. Brave parents support Boise High by the purchase of books, equipment, supplies, and other materials. And the plan is to cover all of the large squares of the patio with these bricks. The Frank Church building was consciously designed to reflect the original white brick building. The molding around the top of the building and the pillars that are in front of the library all are done for that reason. And the pattern that is in this walking plaza that is now covering up 10th Street is designed to flow into a central hub, which is inside the Frank Church building. This central hub is the Boise Brave. This spoke wheel-like design is meant to reflect the fact that the campus has long been a hub of activity for the city. When I was being shown the campus by a senior, he told me, well, you know, it's not a curse or anything if you don't. But most of us, when we walk by the Brave, walk around him. Demolishing the IA building and building the Frank Church building cost $7.5 million. Having spent $7.5 million out of a $13.5 million budget that they originally wanted to be $36 million, the team then looked at the white brick building and said, what can we do with $6 million? First, of course, there were those things that simply had to be done. Life safety issues included new fire sprinklers throughout the building, which it had never had, new alarms, and new smoke detectors. The electrical system was completely replaced for safety reasons and to bring it up to modern need. New fire escapes were added to the second floor, and the building needed to be brought up to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, including installing an elevator. Both for safety and to create more classrooms, a hallway that used to run underneath the auditorium in the central wing was opened up. This had always been used strictly for accessing the backstage area and for storage. A stairway was installed at the back of the auditorium so that they could access this hallway and have another safety exit for the basement of the school. One advantage of that, it did allow some of the rooms that had been used for storage to now be used for classrooms. Having taken care of the things that absolutely had to be done, they then turned to the next logical things to improve the educational environment for students. New lighting systems were installed throughout the building. Telephone and data wiring were installed throughout the building, including fiber optic for computer use. The building was re-roofed. The old cafeteria it took up the back 2/3 of the west wing of the building was turned into art studios and a gallery for the art students. That left the front third of the west wing to expand the theater arts department. What had been originally a gymnasium and then used for the ROTC department, the back 2/3 of the east wing in the basement, was turned into the music library for the school district. Because there was not a separate fire exit, the third floor was closed to use by students. However, it made an excellent place for the school's archives. And all the classrooms were rebuilt. Many times, 2 classrooms were turned into 1 in order to have a more spacious and better learning environment. Unfortunately, a $36 million request had been turned into a $13.5 million budget, and some things had to be sacrificed. Much to my chagrin, one of the things that they sacrificed was turning all the windows back into nice, large, open windows. To tell you the truth, I got through school because those big windows had made it so I could daydream and not pay attention. So, despite my disappointment at not being able to look at the building and see these big, beautiful windows, it does turn out that it was a blessing in disguise. The first year they had classes in this experimental room that they had created, they found out that all that glass and all those hard surfaces make this room an echo chamber and a very difficult place to teach in. With the remodeling, the main building at Boise High, the east wing of which is 100 years old in 2008, became the Center for the Humanities. In this building is taught history, language, art, and drama. You know, not only did they manage to bring the school up to code and to make it a better place to learn, the team was so dedicated that they actually were able to complete a couple of projects that they never thought that they'd be able to afford on that $13.5 million budget. The stories of how they did that and some of the fun stories that they had while they were doing it do make good stories, and we'll be looking at those when we come back to Boise High, probably in about 2 weeks. The reason for that is I have a couple projects going, and after 23 shows of bringing you brand new stuff every week, we are going to show that this is a real, true TV show, and we're going to have a couple of reruns. Yes, something new for the Beer Drinking Guide, and it does prove that we are real television. So next week and the week after that, we'll be taking some train rides in Alaska where we actually get stranded in the snow with only a train to keep us warm. We'll also be looking at bibliolatry, at our first faith, knowledge, take your pick, and some other fun things. These are my first 2 shows, so very likely you haven't seen them yet anyway. Hope to see you then, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks when we'll be back with some new material. And that's another Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next couple of weeks when we'll go exploring our first 2 shows. And until then, keep celebrating the Great Wahoo.